Greetings, everyone, and welcome back to another edition of Lesser Known But Awesome Heroes. And I'm really hopped up on freaking chocolate right now. Anyway, guys, this week's character I will actually be talking about is one of actually two requested characters for Batch 2 that I actually had looked into, and since I'm kind of in a cosmic mood, if you will, I thought that I would actually bring you guys a cosmic superhero from the Marvel Universe. That's right, today I'll be talking about none other than Rom the Spaceknight. So let's actually get into Rom's origins, shall we? Now, an interesting thing about Rom... Oh, wait. Let me first do the statistical stuff. See, like I said, I'm hopped up on chocolate. I'm hyper. I'm spazzing out here. Okay, his first appearance was in ROM #1 in December of 1979, and he was created by Bing McCoy, who was actually the toy designer, Bill Mantlo, who was the writer, and Sal Buscema, who was the artist. I probably just messed up that guy's last name. Interestingly enough, ROM is affiliated with, of course, the Spaceknights, which is a superhero team, and he has super strength, durability, extreme durability, stamina, and flight. Let me actually look at his actual powers. His armor is actually composed of, because he is actually from the planet, hold on, Galdoran, I think is how you pronounce his homeworld, and his armor is actually composed of a metal found on Galdoran, which is Plandanum. Yeah, no way I'm gonna be able to Plandanum. Pretty much, his planet's equivalent of platinum or silver. I'm horrible with names. Okay, anyway, it's extremely durable and can even go as far as to stand up to even, are you guys ready for this? Wolverine's adamantium claws. That's pretty strong. It was shown to be damaged from time to time, demonstrating that it was not indestructible. However, the armor did have self-repairing capabilities, and it would take several weeks to repair major damage. It also provided him with superhuman strength, flight, and the ability to travel through space via backpack rockets. It also allowed him to breathe in any atmosphere and survive in the vacuum of space. Controls near the torso allow him to lower the armor's temperature to well below zero. The armor is stored in a solar charge that could actually be used as a weapon and could drain power sources by mere contact. It gave him the ability to summon 3 pieces of equipment stored in subspace: a neuralizer, which was Rom's primary weapon, and it was designed to banish the dire wraiths to limbo by opening a dimensional portal. However, the process leaves considerable waste material that makes it appear that the weapon actually killed its target to a uniformed observer. In addition, the dire wraiths unsuccessfully explored the possibility of examining the gun to find some means of returning its victims to the normal dimension. It could fire energy blasts that can be deadly at a high setting if ROM chose to select it, and it can neutralize various forms of energy. It was designed so that ROM was able to discharge it. The mutant Wolverine once tried to use the weapon and received a numbing blast of energy feedback. His neuralizer was actually inspired by a similar creation by the mutant Forge when the U.S. government tasked him with creating a weapon against the Wraith Horde. Forge's neutralizer for a time cost Storm her mutant abilities. Anybody who watched the Forge video already pretty much knows that. Analyzer. This allows him to actually see the shape-changing dire wraiths in their true form and could assess the energy and potential of any object or entity that he sees. It could be used on an item which represented a world, such as a globe, and would display lights corresponding to dire wraith infestations at that point on the planet. Unfortunately, the device resembles a handgun, and Dire Wraith impersonators have taken advantage of this fact to fool others into thinking that Rom is attacking them. Rom once again arranged an ally to have the equivalent kind of vision. But the Dire Wraiths counteracted that by magically blocking his mind from recognizing that particular visual data. Regardless, Rom allowed S.H.I.E.L.D. to examine the analyzer in hope of creating an equivalent devices among, the Spaceknight's human allies. And the Universal Translator, this would allow Rom to instantly learn the language of any creature, irrespective of their origins. And this device would be used to scan and store printed information from an encyclopedia in Rom's memory banks for future use. And there were many other versions and many different social medias that used an equivalent of Rom. Because an interesting thing about Rom, guys, is that actually Rom was not originally a comic book character. He was actually a toy. That's right. Parker Brothers actually created, actually the toy was co-created by, Rom the Space Knight was a toy co-created by Scott Dankman, Richard C. Levy, and Brian L. McCoy. And it was sold to Parker Brothers and was actually the inspiration for the comic series. So Rom actually, his comic series was based around Parker Brothers trying to actually sell a toy. Sounds pretty bad, but wait till I get into Rom's origins and you'll see that it's not quite that bad. It's actually, pretty decent. Let's see. Anyway, now for the actual comic. To build interest in the toy, they licensed the character to Marvel to create a comic series featuring him. The comic expanded on the premise that he was a cyborg and gave him an origin, personality, set of supporting characters and villains, as well as interaction within the Marvel Universe. And as I said, this comic was written by Bill Mantlo and initially illustrated by Sal Buscema. He stated in a 2010 interview that he liked the character and liked what they did with it and thought the concept was quite good. It was unique. It made it attractive to do. I almost hate to say this, but it was pretty easy to draw too. Ultimately, the toy would fail, though, sadly, only selling 200 to 300,000 units in the US, and with creator McCoy blaming the failure on poor packaging and marketing. Parker Brothers subsequently would abandon the line. The comic book outlasted the toy, however, which it was created to support, and the series actually lasted for 75 issues from December of 1979 to February of 1986, and Rom's regular encounters with mainstream heroes and villains established him, forever as a member of Marvel's, comic book continuity. Now let me get into the actual origins of Rom, his actual comic origins, rather than it. But I just thought that would actually share the publication history with you guys. I thought that was actually kind of interesting when I researched this character. Okay, as stated in the comic book, Rom was more than a simple cyborg, being originally from the utopian society on a planet called Galador. Yeah, okay. The series details Rom's defeat of an invading alien force called the Dire Wraiths, and the continuation of their battle on Earth and other planets. Unlike the technologically advanced Galdoran civilization, the Dire Wraiths rely primarily on black magic and their power to change their appearance. Some years before his arrival on Earth, before Rom's arrival on Earth, Galador was threatened by a fleet of ships manned by the Dire Wraiths. Galador's ruler, the Prime Director calls for volunteers to be transformed into cyborg warriors called Space Knights, so that they can defend the planet from the dire Wraith invasion. The volunteers are promised that their humanity, that is, the body parts that would be removed to accommodate the cybernetic armor, would be preserved and restored to them after the danger was over. Rom was the first to volunteer and was transformed into a large silver humanoid that at first glance appeared to be totally robotic. Rom was given Galdor's greatest weapon, the Neutralizer, which on one setting could banish the Wraiths into a dimension known as Limbo forever. Inspired by his example, a total of 1,000 Galdorans volunteered and were transformed into Space Knights, each with his or her own unique armor, powers, and code names. The Space Knights succeeded in stopping the Wraith invasion, though Rom decided to follow the remnants of the fleet back to their homeworld, Wraith World. Okay, that's not stereotypical. Which orbited a black sun. The Wraiths panicked and after a futile counterattack abandoned the planet and scattered throughout space. Unable to stop Rom, the Wraiths successfully used their sorcery to trick him into allowing their escape. Rom now felt responsible for spreading the Wraiths' evil influence across the universe and swore that he would not reclaim his humanity until every dire Wraith had been vanquished. His fellow Space Knights, including comrades Starshine and Terminator, swore the same oath and left Galador. And Rom would arrive on Earth actually 200 years later, and it was at this point that the Rom series actually began. And landing near the fictional town of Clairton, West Virginia, Rom would actually encounter a young woman named Brandy Clark, and after seeing Rom deal with the Wraiths firsthand, she comes to understand his mission and helps to hide him from prying eyes. This becomes necessary once Rom uses the Neutralizer in public, as witnesses only see a killer robot disintegrating innocents. They do not realize that Rom is in fact banishing Wraiths in human form. In time, Brandy's boyfriend, Steve Jackson, helps Rom in his adventure. Though Brandy begins to fall in love with the noble Rom, her relationship with Steve would be strained. During his time on Earth, Rom would actually fight and banish thousands of Wraiths. The increasingly desperate Wraiths create new foes for Rom, such as Firefall, a fusion of human and Space Knight, the sorceress Hellhounds, and robotic Watch Wraiths. Two of Rom's greatest foes are aptly named Hybrid, a hideous result of a union between a Wraith and a human, and Mentis, a suit of Space Knight armor occupied by the dark side of the Prime Director's psyche. Many other opponents were more traditional and hailed from the Marvel Universe, such as the Mad Thinker, the Space Phantom, Galactus and his herald Terrax. And he would encounter such heroes as the X-Men, Power Man and Iron Fist, the Fantastic Four, Richard Rider, aka Nova, Ben Grimm, and the Hulk. And Rom was one of the many heroes transported into an area of space for the Contest of Champions, though he was not chosen to compete. At one stage, Rom's war against the Wraiths took a turn for the worse, and a new breed of Wraith appeared on Earth, and appeared to be far deadlier than the first variety. It is later revealed that these are female Wraiths who rely on sorcery as opposed to the weaker males who place their faith in science. Unlike the males, the females chose not to act in secrecy and openly attacked Clairton while Rom was away, killing everybody including Steve Jackson and superhero ally the Torpedo. With the exception of Brandy Clark, furthermore, they actually attacked S.H.I.E.L.D.'s mobile headquarters, the Helicarrier, which gave Earth authorities clear evidence of the existence and threat of the dire Wraiths. And the dire Wraiths would actually come into conflict with the Avengers and the X-Men. And Rom would actually manage to banish all Wraiths on Earth to Limbo with the aid of his superpowered allies and members of the U.S. military. Rom would actually leave. Yeah, he would actually leave Earth soon after finally banishing all the wraiths, and would return to Galador. Unknown to him, Brandy had accidentally met the entity called the Beyonder and asked him to transport her to Galador. The Beyonder complied, and Brandy found herself on Galador, now a war-torn world occupied by a new generation of cyborg space knights. Created to defend Galador in the absence of the first Space Knights, this new generation of cyborgs became corrupted by their power and felt superior to normal Galadorians, massacring the entire race. In an act of sheer spite, the new Space Knights destroyed the frozen remains of the originals. And Rom arrived too late and could only save Brandy. Enraged, he summoned the original Space Knights, and together they destroyed the traitors. They then made a surprising discovery. His original humanity persisted with the entombed body of the Terminator. And reclaiming it, Rom actually became human again, and finally admitted his love for Brandy. The two chose to remain on Galador, and with the intent of repopulating the planet. The remaining Space Knights, who had tragically now had their humanity lost to them, would set out to explore the universe, except for a few who remained on Galador to protect Rom and Brandy. And during the wedding of Rick Jones and Marlo Chandler, during the wedding of Rick Jones and Marlo Chandler, there we go. The now human Rom returned to Earth together with Brandy as guests for the ceremony, and he was seen greeting the Hulk with a friendly handshake. However, in October of 2000 to February of 2001, there was a Space Knights miniseries written by Jim Starlin. And it was revealed that Rom took the name Artor, a reference to Brandy's love of Arthurian legends, and perhaps in memory of his own encounter with King Arthur's ghost. And that he and Brandy had two sons. Rom himself is never actually seen in this series, nor mentioned by name or shown in his Space Knight form. No doubt to skit the fact that Marvel no longer had the licensing right from Parker Brothers, who retained the copyrights for Rom's name and armored likeness. His ship is attacked off-panel just prior to the start of the story, with Rom himself missing and presumed dead. Excuse me. And in other versions in 2000, they would let's see. Yeah, in 2000, Marvel would publish a 5-issue Space Knights series, which featured a hero called Prince Tristan, codenamed Liberator, in a redesigned version of Rom's armor. He fought alongside other Space Knights named after some of the more popular ones from the original series. In the Captain Marvel series featuring Genus Vell, and I found this kind of funny, Rick Jones is shown to own a toaster that's in the shape of Rom's helmet. And in the alternate world of Earth X, Rom had ironically been banished to Limbo and was battling against the very dire wraiths he had sent there. He was shown in human form wielding his neutralizer and using a chest plate as a shield, He was referred to only as the greatest Space Knight. In 2006, Marvel reprinted the official handbook of Marvel Universe as part of their Essentials line of trade paperbacks and included Rom's entries. And in Avengers issue 12, one supervillain group, the Intellectua, was working with a Space Knight that had actually been hosting the Ultron AI. And, there have been many other interpretations of Rom throughout social media and whatnot. But that's it, guys. This has been the origin of Rom the Space Knight. I hope you guys actually enjoyed it. I certainly had fun actually doing this video. It's a pretty interesting character, and it's sad that Parker Brothers still owns the rights to it, because I actually want to see this character actually make a return in the Marvel Universe, because he actually sounds quite cool. But as I always like to say, guys, stay tuned for the next one.